So often in the teachings, our teachers remind us about not wasting our time, because it's so difficult to have this rebirth, and the opportunity is so precious. So how do we usually waste our time? Yeah.
Daydreaming.
Daydreaming. What else?
Being attached to things and being consumed by pursuing those.
Okay, so getting attached to things and then pursuing them takes a lot of time and energy. What else? Huh?
Planning.
Planning. Anger.
Procrastinating.
Procrastinating.
Spacing out. Spacing out.
Spacing out.
Ruminating.
Ruminating.
Sleep.
Sleep. Yeah, there's quite a variety of ways to waste our time, isn't there?
Being inattentive.
Yeah, but we're inattentive because we're attentive to something else. So, what are all the different things we're attentive to? Are, the things that have to do with the happiness of only this life, and the things that so often basically just increase our self-centeredness and play into our self-centeredness. And yet it's so strange that the self-centeredness pretends to be our friend, and yet actually it steals our time and it steals our opportunity. So when you're attached, does it ever, and there's a lot of attachment coming in, and that's where planning comes in, because planning is just, wow, what can I do, where can I go, what can I be, and we start planning, so it's, it's usually a function of attachment. So when you're busy being attached and planning and craving, do you ever think, oh, I'm wasting my time?
The opposite.
The opposite. Yeah, you feel like you're using your time really wisely. Now, why would you feel you're using your time wisely? What's the story the mind makes up for?
I feel like when I'm planning, I'm sort of smoothing the road so that I can take advantage of this situation, that situation.
Okay, so when I'm planning, then I'm smoothing so I can get everything I want when I want it. But do you spend your time planning how you're going to get enlightened? No? No, why not? You like to plan. Why don't you plan how you're going to accumulate all the collection of merit and collection of wisdom so you can go to enlightenment? Yeah, you're planning how to go to Portland, but you may not even get there. And you're planning how to go into a situation that you just got out of. Spending a lot of time planning how to go back into a situation that you spent a lot of time planning how to get out of. Yeah? So, so I think there's something to be said for, looking at what's going on in our mind and asking ourselves, am I really using my opportunity in a good way? Or am I just kind of, going by with the planning and the attachment, wandering? Or conversely, with, anger and resentment. We can spend so much time in anger and resentment. Yeah? And that just takes over our mind, and then we spin around it, don't we, They did this, and they did this, and they did this, and then they did that, and they did that. It's so boring. Yeah. Isn't thinking about ourselves and our own problems all the time boring? and ourselves and our own plans. You know, you go over the same plan. I'm going to go here, then I'll go there. No, maybe I'll go somewhere else first and then go here and there. And, you know, what actually happens is something different. But, you know, we spend all that time planning, and we think that's interesting. Yeah, but if you had to plan my trips, you wouldn't want to, and I don't think you'd do a very good job at it either. Basically because you would find planning my trips boring. Yeah, oh, you gotta call the airline, then you have to talk to these people and arrange these talks. I don't care about her itinerary. I care about, let's see, shall I take the morning bus to Portland? Or maybe I should go on the overnight train? And what shall I take on the journey? And then when I arrive, whose house should I go to? And, you know, where shall I work? And which day shall I enroll in my classes? And, yeah. And you find that interesting. Do you think that's interesting? Anybody of you want to spend their time planning his future? No, we want to plan our own futures, don't we? Yeah, spin around me. Yeah, so we do the same thing, except we're going to Seattle instead of Portland. Which train shall I take? Which bus shall I take? Who do I go to? And we think that's interesting. Okay, so what I'm suggesting is maybe we need to give some time to really think about what's important in our life. You know, what's truly beneficial. Yeah, especially because now we're going to start retreat soon. And retreat, all that meditation time to plan. Boy, you know, 5 meditation sessions, and then you can use your whole study time too. 6 sessions a day to plan. Oh. It's crazy, isn't it? Totally crazy. Yeah. So I think we need to think, you know, what's really important and what's not important. And now is the only time we actually live our life. We're not living in the past because it's over and done with. It's not happening. We're not living in the future because it hasn't happened yet. It's also not happening. The only time we ever have to live is now. The only time we ever have to practice is now. But we're usually not present now. We're usually, you know, longing for the happiness we had in the past, wanting to recreate it in the future, or being stuck in the suffering we had in the past, and, you know, sometimes not thinking of how can I avoid it in the future, but sometimes we're so stuck in the suffering we had in the past we can't even think about the future. Yeah. So let's try and use our time a little bit more wisely. Yeah, because especially doing retreat, if you're going to spend your whole time doing retreat, it's better you don't do retreat. Yeah? It's better you go out and do something meaningful for sentient beings, you know, do some volunteer work or work at a shelter or, you know, really do something useful. Yeah, if we're just gonna let our mind go here and there and everywhere and not make any effort to control it. If we make an effort to do the practice and our mind is still uncontrolled, that's another thing, because we're trying, you know, and we're trying to control our mind, and our intention is going in the right direction. But when we just sit down and don't really set our intention well at the beginning of the session, and then just start our planning or reminiscing or daydreaming from the get-go and let it continue, then that's what I'm talking about. You know, it's better not to be there. Yeah. But if you commit to do retreat, then you've got to be there. And you've got to be there for the whole time, for the whole retreat. You know, even if it's painful to watch how completely distracted and berserky your mind is. Anybody here not have a distracted, berserking mind? Yeah, well, we all do. So we're all there together. You know? Okay. So in the midst of all of that mess that we often call my mind, you know, then we have to have some joy because we've met the Dharma, and joy in knowing that there's a path out of the situation we're in, and joy knowing that we have the conditions around us to make use of that opportunity. Yeah, and so bring some joy and happiness and optimism into our life, and then get to it. You mean I can't think about me for the whole retreat? You can think about yourself, but in a constructive way, not in the usual stupidagio way that we usually think about ourselves. Think about ourselves in a constructive way. Like, what's the meaning of my life? And how does my behavior influence other people? And how can I open my heart to other people? And how can I accept myself and accept them? And how can I have compassion for myself and for them? And how can I be more aware of the kindness that I received my whole life? And how can I repay that kindness? Okay, so that's thinking about ourselves, but in a really positive, useful way. Okay? Instead of the usual patterns our mind gets into. Okay? So, your homework assignment this last week was to check on the difference between direct perception and conceptual thought. So when you're sitting in your daydreams in meditation, what is that? Conceptual thought. When you're doing the 4-point analysis to understand emptiness, what's that? Conceptual thought. So there's different ways to use conceptual thought, isn't there? And it's our choice of how to use it. Okay, so what did you learn by this exercise? Could you see when you were having a direct perception and when you were having conceptual thought? Yeah?
One thing I noticed was when I first wake up early in the morning, it's a little easier to kind of make that distinction. I think my mind isn't so full of so much sense, data, and conceptual things. You know? It's a little fresher, so a little easier.
Okay, so it's easier in the morning to distinguish between the two. How about right now at this moment? Can you see what is direct perception and what's conceptual thought? You can't?
Easily. Yeah. Well.
When you're looking at this, which is it? Direct perception. Yeah.
But it soon follows with.
Yeah, it soon follows with all sorts of conceptual stuff. I like it, I don't like it, it's clean, it's dirty. Okay. But to try during the day to just see the conception, the direct perception, and then, you know, not let it go into distracting conceptual thoughts. Yeah? If you see the thing, you can also, you know, if you want to use conceptual thought, then start thinking about its impermanence. You know? Or think of its interdependent nature. Yeah, so we want to develop conceptual thoughts that are useful for our practice and not just let our mind go off with all of its opinions. Yeah, that's the part of the conceptual thought we want to stop, is all those opinions and all that planning and all that I like and I don't like and I want and I don't want, and how come they do this and how come they don't do that. Yeah. So that's the stuff we want to notice and say, oh, that's not very useful conceptual thought. And, and then stop it. Okay? But if we turn our mind to some useful conceptual thought, then, that can be good. Right?
I noticed, especially on really bright, gorgeous days, that I was always disappointed when the conceptual thoughts would come in. I was trying to prolong that. I didn't think of trying to do the positive conceptual thinking, because then the sort of the image and the experience was diminished by this, this is so beautiful. It still sort of took away from the experience,
I'm not sure I understand you. You're saying, well, we had the beautiful days.
Well, a very striking image.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the conceptual thought zooms in, describing it.
Yes. Okay. Right. Yeah. And yeah, you might go out and it's the contrast between the blue sky and the white snow is very beautiful. But then your mind starts thinking, oh, I remember when I was on a skiing trip and I remember this and I remember that and I wonder how it's going to be. And you can see how sometimes it's very difficult to see things in a fresh way. Conceptually, the sense, you're having the first sense perception that's tracked, but just even when, how the mind starts comparing and contrasting immediately, and how that's what you said, when that is actually distracting or taking away from the beauty of whatever you're seeing, because you're sitting there describing it to yourself and worrying about it changing. Yeah.
Would you say in that example, the experience of pleasure, viewing the scene, if you become aware of your pleasure?
Okay, so you're seeing something beautiful, and you become aware of your pleasure. Now, as a Dharma practitioner, what is the right way to, or what can you do?
And offer it.
I'm wondering if that is direct or conceptual.
If what is?
The awareness of the pleasure.
You can have a direct perception of the pleasure, just the experience of pleasure, and you can have the thought, oh, this is pleasurable, which is usually followed by, and I don't want it to go away. Yeah, and that's when you see how, you've really gone into conceptual thought and affliction.
But would that then be a direct mental perceiver?
No. To remember, the direct mental perceiver is a very small moment at the end of a stream of direct perceptions, and it's so small that.
Then when would that be?
Oh, you mean when you're of your feeling?
Yeah, the experience.
Oh, the experience of your feeling. Okay.
Because it doesn't. If they say that's so short, but I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Unless you were just aware of the sensations.
Yeah.
Physical sensations. It could be the tactile.
Yeah, or it could be the tactile, or just the mental sensations. So that would be some kind of. Yeah,
We have that experience.
Yeah, we have that experience, and that must be some kind of mental perception.
Well,
Yeah.
I tried to really notice when I wanted to move in the hall, my legs, and how it was feeling painful. But when I started trying to describe the sensations, it was like I was having a different feeling then, so at first I was like, I'm uncomfortable, but then I was like, well, what are you feeling? And it was like a tingly, tight, hot, with all of these different things. And then, I could identify it as pain, but even that seems too conceptual when I was just looking, when I was just describing.
Yeah. Well, when you're describing it, that is conceptual.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, when you're describing it, because whenever you're using words, whenever you're thinking about something, that's conceptual. Okay? And I think often what happens is we have that some experience, let's say in our knees. Our mind labels it pain, and as soon as we label it pain, then that takes us off in a whole different direction. Okay, so it can be interesting. Last time I was asking you, how do you know when you feel tired? So you can try that. How do I know when I feel pain? Try going back to just the raw sensation. Yeah, and try not to put the labels on it. And when you do put the label on it, see where certain labels take you. And watch the evolution of your thoughts as you label things, and what kind of thought leads to what kind of other thought, leads to what kind of thought. And then you really can begin to see how your mind works. Yeah?
Couple things from viewers. Tracy is asking, when we label, is that the launch of conceptual thought, or is it long before that?
No, that the labeling, conceptual thought involves labeling. Or labeling, put it this way, labeling involves conceptual thought. Yeah, our sense consciousnesses don't label. It's the conceptual thought that labels.
John is saying, I learned that the direct perceptions are more dull, and I don't perceive an object clearly until I think of what it is.
Yeah.
Perceptions are what?
Dull.
Well, they're dull in one way, because we're so used to living in our head. Yeah, that's why this exercise they have you do in some retreats, where you eat your food very slowly and you pay attention to each bite. Have you ever done that? It's so boring. Yeah.
So gross after so.
It's so.
It's gross after a short.
It's gross, and what's your?
I was really shocked the first time I did that because eating became so boring. Like I realized how much I think when I eat.
Yeah.
It's nice, it's not nice. It was just my mouth's moving. And there's food there.
Yeah.
It was really strange.
Yeah. It's so boring. Yeah. It's true. So then we, it shows us how we rely on our conceptual mind for amusement, and how out of touch we are with, so often, just with the bare sense data of what's there. Okay? Now, I'm not advocating that we have to, how to say, be so aware of each moment of sense data and find it pleasurable or something like that, because I think what we want to learn to do is see beyond the superficial appearance of the sense data, but we have to be able to identify it and then ask ourselves, is it permanent or impermanent? Is it pleasant, is it happiness or suffering? Is it clean or is it unclean? Yeah. Does it have a self or does it lack a self? Yeah. So identify those things and then investigate more deeply, their different attributes and qualities. Here, not the attributes of qualities. Oh, it's shiny and it's gorgeous, and people will look up to me if I have it. Not that, but we remember when we do the four establishments of mindfulness. And we're looking at the four characteristics of true sufferings, yeah. And so really analyzing things in those terms, and and then it becomes clearer to us what the nature of objects are. Donnie? Yes.
Not directly there, but I wanted, because once you said if you look at the Buddha in the meditation hall, then it seems sometimes he has a different expression. And I was reflecting about it a little bit, and I was thinking it's our mind. Because when I'm looking with a special or with a good intention or maybe positive feelings of the Buddha, then the Buddha smiling more than maybe yesterday. It's not the Buddha itself. Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to actually go on with the teaching this time a little bit. Okay, so I wanted to do a little bit of review and that goes into some of the other things. Okay, so so there's also this thing about clear appearance. And because the clarity of an object is so much greater for direct perception than for conception, then our direct perceivers have a clear appearance of the object. Whereas non-conceptual mistaken consciousnesses also have a clear appearance because they're seeing an object without relying on a conceptual appearance. Okay, but there's a clear appearance of something that doesn't exist. Yeah. Okay. So it's interesting to watch, when you know that you're having a sense perception that's incorrect, and you can see how, the object's still clearly appearing to your mind as it does when you're having a reliable sense perceiver. Yeah, the object's clearly appearing, but it's totally mistaken. Yeah. Okay. Then with sense direct perception, you can have more than one sense direct perceiver, which is a prime cognition, at the same time. But they have to be of different senses. Okay? So you can't have two eye consciousnesses, at the same time, or two visual consciousnesses at the same time, or, things like that. But you can have a visual consciousness and an auditory consciousness at the same time. Okay? And each one has, its own object. Each one, when we talk about the mental factors and the 5 omnipresent mental factors, each of those consciousnesses has its own set of 5 omnipresent mental factors. Okay, so for ordinary beings, one moment of a consciousness is too brief to be noticed. One moment is an attentive perception. And so what we actually are experiencing is a continuum of moments of consciousness apprehending a continuum of moments of an object. Okay, because what they say, 1 instant, 1/56 of a finger snap. If we just had that, that's probably too short to actually know that we saw something. So we have a continuum of moments. And sense direct perceivers realize their object, except inattentive perceivers. They don't realize their object. So we'll get into inattentive perceivers a little bit later, but basically what it is if, I'm listening I'm engaged in a conversation and I see something somewhere, but I'm not, the data's going in my visual consciousness, but I'm not paying attention to it because I'm really listening to the other person's words. Okay. Now it can happen that, let's say you're having a conversation with somebody and you're seeing them and listening to them at the same time, because those are two different, sense perceivers that are working. Okay, so it says here, and this one I think we have to think about, that a visual consciousness can know a person is your friend without labeling it. It can identify that data as a friend, or something familiar. It can identify this data as a table. but without necessarily saying, oh, it's a table. But that one I always wonder about. Yeah? Seems to me at some level, maybe, you know.
It sounds a little bit like how Albert Einstein described. He said he used to think a lot, but without words or something. You know? He had a way of thinking that seemed to be not so linguistic.
Okay. Maybe I can go on. Okay, and you can listen and then think about the material, and after you think about the material, ask some questions. Okay? Otherwise, we don't get anywhere. Okay? So a sense direct perceiver can also comprehend its object's ability to perform a function. So we can see a fire and know it can perform the function of cooking food. Okay. So there's certain attributes of objects that we can know with that appear to our sense direct perceiver, that can be known by our sense direct perceivers. But of course that doesn't mean we always know them or see them, because there could be a lot of inattentiveness going on. Okay, so remember, with the mental sense power, or the mental direct perceiver, okay? So the mental direct perceiver on this occasion is those induced by a sense direct perceiver apprehending any of the 5 objects. And the mental sense power, that makes you connect to that object, is whichever of the 6 consciousnesses has immediately preceded, whatever you're thinking about. So if you're thinking about yellow, your visual consciousness that apprehended yellow, is the mental sense power that is causing. Well, I'm sorry, I'm getting confused. The mental direct, because we're not talking conceptual here, we're talking mental direct perceivers. So, and we're talking just that one short moment at the end of a stream of sense consciousness. So the mental sense power is whatever the sense consciousness was that came before, that leads to that one moment of mental direct perception that is so short that it's inattentive and we don't notice it. Okay? So not more than one small moment is generated. So in ordinary beings, they're inattentive perceptions, and they're actually hidden phenomena. They're not something evident to us. Then remember we went through those things of there's it said with respect to how direct perceivers indicated on this occasion are produced, there's 3 assertions. So the alternating one, because going between a moment of sense direct perception and then the mental direct perception of that object, and then back to the another moment of sense perception, then another moment. So the reason that theory was rejected was because then you wouldn't have an unbroken continuum of a sense direct perceiver, and the first moment of a sense direct perceiver would not be the direct cause of the second moment. And one moment is too short to see the object. Okay? So it can't be this thing of alternating back and forth between sense and mental, because then we couldn't really perceive the object. Yeah, because we need that unbroken stream of moments of a sense consciousness in order for the object to actually register with us. And I think scientists have shown this, that's proven in science labs. Then we had the other alternative, which was called production of the 3 types. And that one was that the second moment of a sense direct perceiver apprehending yellow, and the first moment of a mental direct perceiver apprehending that same yellow, and the apperceptive direct perceiver experiencing the two. Yeah, so we haven't gone fully into apperception, but we will. That all those three happen at the same time. Okay, so that can be because, first of all, you would actually have four consciousnesses. One is the sense direct perceiver. One is the mental direct perceiver. Another would be the apperception of the sense direct perceiver, and another would be the apperception of the mental direct perceiver. So you'd actually have four at the same time. Okay? So that one does make sense. And so then we're left with the other one, the way they assert it, even though this is a hidden phenomena that we can't see with our senses. We have to, use inference or, rely on somebody else's word. That it's a stream of moments of sense perception and then a moment of mental direct perception. Sense perception is always direct. You never have a conceptual, you don't have a visual conceptual thought. Sense direct perception's always direct. Okay, then there's mental direct perceivers not indicated on this occasion. Okay, so those can, for example, can be mental direct perceivers induced by states arisen from meditation. For example, the 5 superknowledges. And these can be generated in the continuum of an ordinary being because you get these superknowledges because of gaining deep samadhi, usually the 4th jhana. Okay, the 4th meditative stabilization acts as the basis to gain these powers. Sometimes they translate these as the 5 clairvoyances, but that's not correct because clairvoyance refers specifically to the eye seeing something, and not all 5 regard the eye. So it's better to call them the 5 superknowledges. Okay, so the first one of those is an ability of magical emanation. That means you have the ability to show various emanations, to make your body, one body look like many bodies, or many bodies look like one body. You can go under the earth, you can walk on water, you can walk through walls, you have all these things, okay? So that is a mental direct perceiver that's not indicated on this occasion. So that's all done through the power of the mind, these abilities. Then the second one is the divine eye. And this is the ability to see the coarse and subtle forms of a billion worlds. Okay, so coarse forms are forms that you can see with your visual eye consciousness that can be perceived by ordinary sentient beings. But here you can perceive those things that are like in another universe, the other part of the world, or something like that. Yeah, so you can check up, what's going on in India right now or whatever. You can go watch His Holiness's teachings just in your meditation. Yeah, it'd be nice, wouldn't it? Okay, and then the subtle forms are perceived only by such clairvoyance. Yeah, so those might be very small things. Or this one of the divine eye also refers to being able to see sentient beings dying and where they're reborn. Yeah, so knowing that kind of thing. So if you're a bodhisattva, that's very useful information to have for, to be able to benefit sentient beings, to know, what their karma is, who's dying when, and what karma's ripening, and where they're getting reborn, and, to know where different people are so you can make connection with them, or to know where your teachers are, again, so you can emanate bodies and make connection with them. So these 5 super knowledges, if you use them, with the motivation of bodhicitta, they become very, very useful for benefiting sentient beings. Then the third one is the divine ear. So this is the ability to hear the coarse and subtle sounds of this world system. So actually, if you're going to get His Holiness's teachings in India that are going on, you need both the divine eye and the divine ear to have the whole experience. If you just have the divine eye, you're not going to hear Him. So you really need the divine ear, because it's, the sound that's so important to hear. Then the fourth one is the memory of previous lives. So this too, if you're a bodhisattva, can be very useful, because you see who you have karmic connections with, and then again you know who you can benefit and make contact with them. Then the fifth one is knowing others' minds. So knowing what people are thinking, knowing what they're planning, knowing what they're aspiring for, knowing their dispositions, are they more inclined towards the hearer vehicle or solitary realizer vehicle or bodhisattva vehicle? Are they somebody who has sharp wisdom, or are they somebody who more learns by faith? So knowing people's inclinations and dispositions. So again, that's very helpful for bodhisattvas. Okay, so those are the 5 super knowledges that are examples of mental direct perceivers that are not indicated on this occasion, and they're gained through deep states of concentration. And ordinary beings can have these, but they become really useful when you have them with bodhicitta, and of course also when you have realized emptiness. And these 5 super knowledges, they ascertain their objects. So the first moment is going to be a prime cognition, according to Sautrantikas, and then the future moments are going to be subsequent cognitions. Okay, other mental direct perceivers that aren't integrated on this occasion are, for example, apperception, because that is a mental direct perceiver. We'll get into that in a moment. Or it can be a yogic direct perceiver of subtle impermanence. It's another example. The karmic clairvoyance of bardo beings. Okay, is another example. And this is a contaminated or a polluted clairvoyance that enables the bardo being to know coarse but not subtle phenomena, and it arises due to previous karma from merely being born in the bardo, in the intermediate stage. Okay, then let's do apperception, the next one. So apperceptive direct perceivers. So we're talking about 4 categories of direct perceivers. What are they? Sense, mental, apperception, yogic. Okay, so we're on the 3rd one. So it is said to be, it's defined as that which has the aspect of an apprehender is the definition of an apperception. So what does that mean? Have the aspect of an apprehender. Okay, so it's a consciousness that's directed inward. It's perceiving the other consciousness that is engaged with an object. So let's say you have a visual consciousness apprehending blue. Okay, so the eye consciousness sees the aspect of blue, and so it is that which has the aspect of the apprehended, because blue is the apprehended object, and that blue casts an aspect onto the consciousness. So the visual consciousness is that which has the aspect of the apprehended, the object. The apperception, has the aspect, is that which has the aspect of the apprehender, because its object is that visual consciousness. So the visual consciousness apprehending blue, its object is blue, and the apperception that accompanies it, its object is that visual consciousness apprehending blue. Okay? And it's one nature with that visual consciousness apprehending blue. It's non-dual. Okay, it's a non-dual perception. This is Satantrikas. Prasangikas refute this.
Thank you.
Okay. But it's interesting to learn, because you have to learn this in order to understand why Prasangikas refute it. Okay, so that which is, more about the apperception, that which is non-conceptual. Okay, so it's interesting. It's a non-conceptual consciousness, even when it's an apperception of a conceptual mind. Okay, it's non-conceptual, unmistaken, because it isn't a conceptual mind. Even if it's apprehending a conceptual mind, it itself is not a conceptual mind. And it has the aspect of an apprehender, is the definition of an apperceptive direct perceiver. So when apperceptive direct perceivers are divided, there's three. Those that are reliable cognizers, so they're the ones that are the prime cognizers, the first moment, according to Satantrika. Those that are subsequent moments, so, when you're having a whole stream looking at pink, then all those subsequent moments of apperception of the subsequent moments of the visual consciousness perceiving pink. Okay. And then the third kind is those to which an object appears but is not ascertained. So when you're engaged in the conversation here and pink is appearing to your eye consciousness but you're not paying attention to it, that consciousness, that visual consciousness, still has an apperceptive mind that's perceiving it. Okay, but that's an inattentive apperceptive mind. Okay, so there's ones that are prime cognizers, ones that are subsequent cognizers, ones that are inattentive. Okay, so the consciousness experiencing the I consciousness sees the apprehender, because the I consciousness is the apprehender, and it's called that which has the aspect of an apprehender. Yeah, the apperception of a wrong consciousness is the same entity as that consciousness, but it isn't a wrong consciousness. Just as the apperception of a conceptual consciousness is not a conceptual consciousness, it's direct, even though it's one nature with that consciousness. Okay. Now, here's some little puzzles. When we are learning, the philosophical, system, they talk about different possibilities of how things can be related. So if you have two objects, there's four ways or four possibilities between them. One is that they're synonymous. In other words, whatever is one is the other. A second one is that they're contradictory, so that whatever is one is not the other. Another is that there's three possibilities. So there is something that is both of those two things, something that is neither of those two things, and something that is one of those but not the other. Or there can be 4 possibilities that, something that is both of them, something that's neither of them, something that is this one but not the other one, and something that is that one but not the other one. Okay, so let's take, before we get into the different consciousnesses, this comes up a lot when you're doing the studies, and it's kind of fun, and you can draw lots of Venn diagrams about it that help you understand. But let's take Maitri and an animal. The two phenomena, Maitri and animal. So is there something that is both Maitri and an animal?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What?
Cat.
The cat named Maitri. Okay. Is there something that is neither Maitri nor an animal?
Yes.
Person.
What?
There are lots of things that are neither Maitri and animal.
Yeah, so give an example.
The bowl in front of you.
Okay, the bowl. Okay. Is there something that is Maitri but not an animal?
Yes.
What?
Well, Maitri is love and kindness.
Yes.
It's not an animal.
Right. And is there something that's an animal but not Maitri?
Yes.
What?
Karuna.
Good. Good. Okay, so you got the idea? Okay, so this is used a lot in the studies to help you really see, how things relate to each other. Okay, so let's do a prime cognizer and and apperception. Okay, is there something that is both a prime cognizer and an apperception?
I can't answer that because I have no idea what an apperception is yet.
Well, it's this mind that is non-conceptual, unmistaken, and has the aspect of the apprehender.
So it would have to be yes to that question.
Right. So what would be an example?
My direct perception of that bowl.
Well, I'm asking apperception and prime cognizer. So your direct perception of the bowl is not an apperception.
I guess my realizing that I'm having a direct perception of the bowl.
No.
Like I said, I haven't figured out what an apperception
Okay.
is yet.
When you're having a direct perception of the bowl, the apperception is perceiving the mind that is perceiving the bowl.
Okay.
Okay? So something that is both a prime cognizer and an apperception. Okay. So you know for sure it's going to have to be an apperception of what in order to make it also a prime cognizer.
Sense conscious.
Hmm?
Or a direct perceiver.
Yeah, but be specific.
An eye consciousness.
Any eye consciousness, the second moment of eye consciousness?
First moment of eye consciousness.
Any eye conscious? Oh, you got to be specific. It's got to be an eye consciousness apprehending pink. Okay, so the apperception of the first that accompanies the first moment of eye consciousness apprehending pink is both an apperception and a prime cognizer. Okay? What is something that's neither of those?
Conceptual thought.
Yeah. Why?
Because it's not a direct perceiver, and it's not an apperception.
Mm-hmm. And why isn't it a prime cognizer?
Because it's conceptual.
Conceptual thoughts can't be prime cognizers? When you have an inference, a valid inference, is that conceptual? Is it prime cognizer?
The first moment.
The first moment is. Okay, so when you just said conceptual thought, you have to be more specific.
Second moment of a conceptual thought.
Okay, so the second moment of a conceptual thought is neither an apperception, because it's a conceptual thought, and it's also not a prime cognizer, because it's the second moment. Good. Okay, now is there something that is apperception, but is not a prime cognizer?
No.
No.
You sure?
Perception of a conceptual thought.
Any concept? What makes something a prime cognizer?
New.
It has to be new. Okay, so you know that if there's something that is an apperception but not a prime cognizer, it's going to be some kind of apprehension, and it's not going to be new. So what's an example of an apperception that is not new?
An apperception of the second moment of a conceptual thought.
Yeah. Okay. Or it could be the apperception of the second moment of a direct perceiver apprehending chartreuse.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Chartreuse.
Okay. Now, is there something that is a prime cognizer, but not an apperception?
Depends. If you're talking Prasangika, yes.
Now, let's stick with this one. What is a prime cognizer, but it's not an apperception? So to be a prime cognizer,
Conceptual thought.
yeah,
Yeah.
because it's a prime cognizer. It's the first moment, and it's not an apperception because it's a conceptual thought. Okay, you see how it works? Yeah. So it's interesting. You can do this back and forth. Taking these different things, and it helps you see how well you understand these things. Yeah, if you can test them out. What about between permanent and impermanent? How many points are there?
What do you mean points?
No. Points of contact, you mean?
Yeah, they're contradictory, aren't they? Okay. What about Maitri and Maitri the cat and impermanent?
They have overlap.
Okay. So what's something that's both? Maitri. What's something that's neither?
Permanent space.
Huh?
Emptiness of a different cat.
Yeah. Or the emptiness of Maitri too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, could be Maitri's emptiness, because it's not Maitri, and it's not impermanent. Okay. Is there something that is Maitri but not impermanent?
No.
No.
No. Is there something that's impermanent but not Maitri?
Yeah.
Yeah. Karuna.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll have to stop now. But practice this, kind of during this next week, because it comes up a lot in philosophy as you do this. And it's really kind of fun, and it makes you think. So spend some time doing this, kind of, and then it makes you think, what are the relationships between these different kinds of minds? Yeah, and you have to make specific examples. This consciousness apprehending this, and specify. Oh. Oh, now she's going to cough. Okay, so we'll stop for this evening, but during the week, play with this a lot. Okay, come on, Maitri. She'll be okay.